After years of Black women especially complaining about all our makeup is named after food, you're gonna go and call these brownie lips? In an environment driven by consumerist, individualistic, media-driven cultures, the body has become a very important identity project. The That Girl trend is a perfect example of an internet aesthetic that is not simply about beauty and how to achieve it, but also it serves as a tool to achieve the idealized identity under capitalism. For anyone unfamiliar, That Girl has been described as a wellness archetype trend where the participants focus on optimizing their daily routines to be the most productive whilst also doing it in a visually pleasing way. A key component of this trend is that most of this is documented, typically on TikTok with the relevant hashtags #thatgirl or #cleangirl. It's the documentation and daily step-by-step and the sharing of tips to their audience that clearly points out That Girl. In this video, I'm going to talk about That Girl as an example of self-surveillance and the preservation of social norms like race, class, and gender ideals and the impacts. Self-surveillance is the attention one pays to behavior when facing the actuality or virtuality of an immediate or mediated observation by those whose opinion they deem as relevant. In other words, how you behave when you think you're being watched. If you're a content creator and you see that TikTok trends that are buzzing are That Girl, of course, you're gonna try and shift your content to be that because you know that's getting the most traction. You're gonna bend your content in that direction, and in the case of a lifestyle influencer, your content is your life, so you're gonna bend your life in that direction. Because even off camera, if you skip your 20-step skincare routine and have a breakout, no one's gonna use your La Roche-Posay discount code. But some people argue that the whole purpose of having it all documented is so that you can have an external audience, like an infinite amount of people potentially, to hold you accountable to your routine and to your goals. As the name of the trend suggests, it is geared towards and indulged in mainly by women. That Girl idealizes or shows the ideal woman in the 21st century. A productive member of society whose priorities, hobbies, everything around their life is centered towards their corporate identity. So how you eat, sleep, and take care of yourself to make sure that your 9-to-5 day is as optimized as possible. So it's all centered around being the best you can be at your workplace. Also, it involves a lot of hyper-consumerism. Again, to be the best person under capitalism, you have to be feeding the machine constantly. So all the latest tech, all the best skincare, all the wellness subscriptions you can get. Obviously, some people make money off the content, but a lot of it is also through pushing consumption. So sponsorships. It's also worth noting that the trend, visually, when you go on to the platform, is dominated by traditionally feminine presenting people, or the idealized type of femininity: thin, fair, soft. And there's also the balance between corporate excellence and domestic duty, because as much as That Girl is prioritizing work, she also has to have the immaculately decorated, immaculately cleaned, apartment. But with the corporate excellence thing, I know I'm not pulling at straws because I've already seen people compare it to the girl boss trend that we saw dominating the mid-2000s. It's very uncanny. Even though That Girl, like most other trends, is around self-empowerment, self-improvement, it's still laced with that let's continue to raise the standards of women just a little bit. And the way she presents it as so easy, so attainable. It's almost like That Girl is a mirror of you if you took better care of yourself, if you put more effort into your appearance, if you went to the gym every day, if you made smoothie bowls in the morning instead of grabbing the earliest protein bar or something. She's you if you adopted this. Don't worry, very easy 30-second video has 3 steps that you can take, and if you just do those 3 things every single day, you too can be That Girl. You are subconsciously comparing yourself, which is the idea, because then if you get sucked into it, eventually you will use That Girl's promo code. The ease of the lifestyle is quite deceptive, which gets us into That Girl and class. To live a life like That Girl is effectively to live a life of luxury. Like all the products, experiences, the time afforded to that girl is a luxury. And luxury by definition is exclusionary. When teenage people gather into like the comments and start asking questions about, oh, how did you do this? How did you motivate yourself to do this? And asking for like tips and stuff. Of course, the creators will happily reply and say, oh, it's a mindset. You just have to put yourself to it, or start journaling, or just buy the journal. Don't hesitate. Some motivational quick tip that you can fit into like a TikTok comment. If you try and ask any further questions, you obviously can't get an answer, or they'll just never respond to your video. Or if you ask a critical question, then you're labeled as a hater. Effectively, they can't give you a big enough answer that doesn't end up with, well, I don't have the time for that because I work multiple jobs, or I don't have the time for that because I go to work and school, or where like the 2000s was like, oh, who has the biggest makeup collection, which makeup should I get, which whatever should I get, like, and then we got into like the late 2010s with, oh, which hair product should I get for my curly hair, like, oh, 4C trends and products. Now we're like, oh, which skincare should I get, which retinoid should I get, which sunscreen, which whatever. Even if a regular person tried to like scrounge up all these products that they push and all the technology that they push, at some point you hit a brick wall, because there's also the fact that people never factor in, hey, these people are influencers, they get sponsorships, hey, these people, this beauty is their whole career, so of course they're going to invest extra things that you don't know, like cosmetic procedures, for just as an example. The more you can invest into your beauty, the more social mobility you're afforded as well, because like a company is not going to sponsor a person who has like severe stress induced acne from working 50 hours a week to get better skin. They're going to pay someone who already has good skin to like promote their brand. They're not actually going to demonstrate that it works. They're just going to be like, oh, this is what we want people to think our skincare does, so we're gonna pay them. Also, in this aesthetic, or in chasing this aesthetic, exorbitant spending is like praised, I guess, or it's like put away, because in the end it's like, oh, it's self-care, or it's, oh, it's self-optimization, like I need this extra iPad, or this extra tool, this extra tech, this extra whatever, so that I can achieve my productivity at the fullest. And I want to briefly talk about the term self-care actually, because as we know it online, it's just simple things like, take care of yourself, like take a bath or read that book that's been on your nightstand for 3 weeks. But I recently learned that is actually a very watered down version of what self-care was to begin with. Self-care began as a medical term for marginalized people, like the elderly, severely mentally ill people, to try and get them ways to take care of themselves, and then was later adopted by social activists like the Black Panthers to advocate for better medical care for marginalized people, like racialized Black and brown people in the 60s. And that feels like such a far cry from how we use the term self-care now. Radical sayings like rest is resistance are now touted by that girl who's tired from working her Big Four corporate job where she makes 6 figures. Like, self-care moved from a radical concept, right? And then, the big fitness and wellness trends of the 80s kind of just like took it and ran with it and ruined it. And the type of community-based approach to care and health that was envisioned by like the Black Panthers and stuff is just like, you can't even imagine that it's possible, because at the same time that I'm scrolling like online and you see a That Girl video and she's taken a $70 Uber to get herself a matcha latte, you scroll and then it's a video of people showing each other how not to freeze to death because they can't turn on their heating this winter. Instead of like advocating for collective wellness, what the self-care industry does is tell us that it's in our own hands. We can take care of ourselves. Everyone should take care of themselves. You can't be bogged down by what's going on like outside and how it's affecting everybody. Everyone's experiencing burnout. Everyone is being exploited. Everyone is underpaid, unless you're like very lucky. I don't know. But no, it's you have to work more. It's you have to grind more. It's you have to optimize your day so that every single hour counts. Everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. And it's that individualistic approach that's also touted by That Girl, because That Girl is also telling you, oh, it's not that, hey, maybe everyone at your job needs to unionize because you are all being underpaid and overworked, and not getting holidays. No, it's just you are not using your time effectively so you can get all your rest. And as I've said before, that girl's life then gets centered around being the perfect person for her job. Except in the case of that girl, like I've said, a lot of the people who make that girl content are in the most cushy and like, I don't know, at least that's the appearance of what you see mostly on the content. It's people who are in very cushy jobs, the people who get comment sections that are people just enraged, like, what have you done today? Like, you went in, you had one meeting, you wrote 2 emails, like they do a vlog of their day, and then you went for lunch, and then you went for drinks, and then you went home. And you're like, oh yeah, so this is how you optimize your day. When a person who has a job that's that easy is on the internet telling other people who have significantly different jobs that, oh yeah, if you just do these, like, of course you clearly have the time to make yourself 3 lattes in the morning, because you're not doing anything when you get to work. Or I'm so sorry for this tangent, but I just thought I should talk about it. But yeah, people just say, yeah, there's nothing insidious about that girl trend. It's just people helping each other out. But it's not, because it's still feeding into hustle culture. That girl is more about self-discipline than self-improvement or even self-care. So we get to that girl and race. Some people argue that that girl and clean girl are 2 different aesthetics, but I think it's the same thing. And when the trend first picked up, it was clean girl, and then it changed to that girl. The word clean just carries so much aggression, like so much microaggression, and obviously it was received with like a lot of like raised eyebrows online, especially by other like black and brown people, which rightfully so, because it's like well documented that the style and like aesthetics of marginalized communities are often absorbed by like white people and then often appropriated and without credit. With that girl, she also has like a certain style of dress, which is usually like little hoops, slicked back hair, and what they're calling brownie lips or something like that. Are we really getting back to that after years of Black women especially complaining about all our makeup is named after food? You're gonna go and call these brownie lips? And also, that is a terrible name. It looks nothing like what brownies are you eating? And all these trends are always named like terrible things. And first of all, they shouldn't be trends. Sometimes I'm concerned people aren't doing them. Like there was a time on TikTok when white people started telling each other about moisturizing your whole body instead of just your face, and they called it slugging. Slugging? Also, maybe it wouldn't be that big of an issue if like credit was given, because yes, Hailey Bieber didn't explicitly say that she came up with the trend, but she also didn't say where she got it either. And then articles come out and they say, oh, she's like come up with this, look at this trend that she did, let's do this trend. And it's like, hey, what about these other people who've been doing this for decades? Have we talked about them? And why is it that any sort of aesthetic, style, whatever, only becomes monetizable when white people do it? I mean, we know why. This is a rhetorical question. Don't start typing your answer for me. And then once the trend is done, they throw it away. They move on to the next thing that they can rip off, right? It's never like embraced, and it would be cultural appreciation if it were like embraced, not trendified, just like a thing that people start doing, but it's always just hyper consumed and then immediately thrown out. Also, on the subject of race, like I've mentioned, that girl trend is also heavily consumerist, and the skincare industry is not exempt from like unethical production, distribution practices and labor practices. Take, for example, the mining of mica, which apparently is done majority by children, like especially in India, which is where I think it's like quite in abundance. And loads of companies either like try and avoid it, or like, oh, we're still mining with children, but we're putting some of them in school now, so it's okay. And as the demand for like natural skincare soars and more celebrities are having skincare lines for whatever reason, you can only imagine that the demand for raw materials just means they are obviously, and also the fact that the skincare industry is like largely unregulated, they are obviously, it's not going to be great. It's not going to be a good situation. I think this person summarized it all perfectly and said, which again, I think that girl falls into the type of category of self-improvement, self-optimization that also wants to be feminist. And I think that's why I think this quote is relevant, which says, beauty cannot be feminist because beauty colonizes. It exploits Black, brown, and Asian women in factories, mines, farms, nail and hair salons, as well as through cultural appropriation, just to put white cis women on the cover of Vogue and call it empowering. If you often find yourself drawn to this sort of content, it's worth asking why. While any form of self-help can help you temporarily, you can get benefits from it, it's not going to fully address the wider reasons of why you're feeling burnout, why you're feeling unproductive, why you're feeling like you are underachieving. You need to get to a much wider root causing the issue, because this person who is constantly productive, constantly on top of things, constantly has everything together, is unattainable on purpose. Thanks if you've made it to this part of the video. I hope you liked it. I'll see you next time.